Hey everybody, welcome back from spring break. Hopefully you had a good one. Found some decent weather somewhere maybe. Did some traveling. I know a lot of people end up just kind of working extra hours across spring break, but hopefully it was still an enjoyable time overall. So take a quick look at our due dates, keeping in mind that units 7, technically 7, 8, and 9 are all connected, but our primary focus right now is the group project that we'll take another quick look at. Mostly kind of touching base with your group and building time in Unit 7, brainstorming building. Really fundamentally just building time. You'll notice that there's no secondary reply due date here, because what we do in Unit 9 is basically the reply to the various projects that are completed and posted here in Unit 8. So again, just to kind of walk us through our various units here. Here we have the assignment, right, working with your group to build out a Google slide deck or a Google site, like a new website, where you're talking to us about a poet of your choosing, and then closely analyzing at least 3 works by that poet. Again, keeping in mind that the poet doesn't need to be just the sort of like typical canonical figure that you might cover, like a T.S. Eliot, let's say. Certainly you could do that, but you don't have to feel limited to someone who's sort of like officially in the every anthology under the sun. By the same token, though, we do want someone who is kind of like a professional publishing or published poet. Super famous? No, but recognizable as a poet? Yes. So we don't just want to find someone who's kind of like blogging or self-publishing on the web and use that as our poet. But we can certainly use, a more diverse group of voices and certainly more contemporary stuff than, some of those more traditional choices. Anyway, the poem choice is totally up to you. As a group, obviously you can be creative about how you arrange material across your slides or your various pages that you're building out. Providing, useful historical, biographical stuff. We don't want to get too informational, I guess, like just a bunch of facts that, anybody could Google. What we'd like to see is how that historical context or maybe the biographical stuff actually connects to the work of that poet. So you're not just listing a bunch of facts or dates or whatever, but you're actually building a sort of analysis around that material. Again, providing an analysis of the 3 works. Again, working in a group like this, it makes sense to divide the labor a little bit, but it should really feel like a whole group project. And one of the ways that this can happen is to make sure that you don't have 3, work analyses that don't really speak to each other. So even if, different people in the group start by drafting the analysis, so not everybody is writing the whole thing necessarily, you as a group member should read the other stuff, and so within the stuff that you're writing, you should be making reference to, again, maybe other slides with this kind of material, or as so-and-so noted in her discussion of whatever work, we also see that happening in whatever. So again, really trying to, even as you divide the labor, making it feel like a whole, complete group project that everyone has contributed to. Provide a resources page. It doesn't need to be like all formal MLA citation, but just some links or whatever that you might have used to get analysis stuff, or again, that biographical or historical information. And again, really work to contextualize that or make it like valuable for us. It's not just trivia for the sake of trivia. So the project isn't due for this unit, but we do want to return to our planning document or get into our planning document here. So I should be seeing, right, this space is starting to populate with kind of back and forth between the group members. Even if you already made this decision within the group and everyone kind of knows what's going on, fill this out so I, on the instructor side, have a sense that everyone is like on board and paying attention and doing what you're supposed to do. And then even though we know that your slide deck or site or whatever is not done yet, make sure you populate the link, even if it's just blank slides right now. Another thing that I've asked you to do is make sure you share it with me, share it with this Google account, not just with my regular email. That can really help with like troubleshooting issues if they happen to arise in the future. So make sure your group is getting in here, starting to like populate this with information so I can see that everything is on track. And then as a group, at some point close to the due date for this unit, you're going to want to post your project link to this discussion board. Again, we know that it's not done yet, but we're looking for some feedback. There should be enough that people can provide some input on what's there or what's there already, or even make some suggestions about promising ways to go. Another thing you might think about doing as a group is, even if all of the text or the material isn't built, maybe you've at least labeled slides or done sort of like a rough outline so that people looking at your site will kind of know what is coming. And then as a responder here, or someone providing peer feedback, if you're seeing areas that are mapped out for like biographical information or connections to real world events or whatever it happens to be, make sure you look at that and don't suggest something that the group clearly has already kind of earmarked to do. You could, though, respond that this seems like a good idea, or here's a little bit of trivia that you maybe haven't run into, or even something about how maybe it connects to what your group is doing. So I get that it can be a little tricky to provide feedback when not all of the work has been done yet, but I still think it's valuable. It helps the groups to make forward progress because you know that people are going to be looking at this, and obviously you have some outside eyes taking a look at what you're doing and suggesting new perspectives, maybe giving you the thumbs up on things that are working well. So even that's good information to have. So we have sort of like a midway point check-in here to get some project feedback, which then obviously feeds us into Unit 8, which is where you are as a group finishing up your project. Everyone is building out his or her portfolio, and then doing a little additional paragraph that's individual, right, not a group thing, about kind of like your contribution and how it all turned out, even maybe what you could have done differently, just a sort of reflection on the thing itself. And clearly mention if you incorporated some of the feedback that you got from the earlier Unit 7. So there's really nothing right to do here except work on your project and then make sure each individual each group member will return to the portfolio and then post that link to the discussion board here. So it's really important that I get that access to the projects, preferably as an editor. Again, it just makes it a lot easier. Back in Unit 7, not because you're not publishing it here, but what we're going to do in Unit 9, which is kind of like the reply component here, we're going to return to one of my favorite tools, the Padlet tool. So what I will try to do, and it doesn't always work that smoothly, but I'll do my best, is to actually post the projects that are finished or as I get them here on the Padlet. So it's kind of like always there in front of you. And so what your job, each individual, your job is to use the Padlet, again, in this really like mobile kind of way, right? Open the URL on your phone browser and try to make some connections to other people's projects, poets, the poems that they've covered, the ideas, etc., to things that you run into in your everyday life. So again, you're not going to sit at your computer, you're not going to Google stuff. It should be stuff that you are encountering in your real everyday life. You want to post 3 pictures, 3 separate projects. I think we have enough groups that's going to be possible. I'll double check and reword if we need to. And again, to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to do my best to embed or link to the projects within the Padlet itself. So that's why it's important that I get access so I can like publish to the, or present, or whatever buttons I need to click within whatever you're doing, so that you're not trying to like remember what the projects were or somehow toggle back and forth between Blackboard and the Padlet that you're doing. So again, that's going to be the version, or the way that we do the reply as we move forward. So that's why, again, there's no secondary due date here. There's just this primary one where everyone's posting their finished project. And then we have that turnaround for the reply, and there's no like reply to the reply. So again, we just have that primary date. And that takes us, honestly, close to the end of our class, but Also, something that I've been reminding you about fairly regularly is Unit 10. Whoops, gotta meet Thali. Our Unit 10 is the one that is noted really early in our units list here, where you've attended a poetry event and you're kind of reporting out on it. So again, there's a poetry events link here. There's a couple of things that we've posted, so a kind of ongoing thing, and then a really good opportunity if you are on campus or can make it to campus for this Tuesday morning event. That's next week, April 9th. Kevin Koval, a really interesting Chicago poet and activist, will be here. Part of the Writers Read series, where we bring writers to campus and they read from their work, but also engage with the audience about, the work of being a writer and publishing, and in this case, being sort of that poet activist figure. So make sure that you're attending to this so it doesn't sneak up on you as part of Unit 10. And then we just have a couple more things that we do and pretty much wrapped up. So still some units, some work ahead of us. We've just finished up spring break, so it's time to get things in gear again. But especially as the weather starts to change, we'll feel it getting closer to the end of the spring term. All right. So again, make sure that you're sharing your project with me. It's explained there in Unit 7. Make sure you're connecting with your group, filling out that planning form. Even if you've made those decisions as a group, put it in the form so I can see it. And if you have any challenges that are coming up or questions or whatever, by all means be in touch with me. I'll check in with everybody in a couple of days.